Hello, everyone, and welcome to this podcast. It's very exciting. So far on this podcast each Sunday, we've been having quite political discussions and topics of a political nature, some of which are quite heavily charged. Today, we're taking a diversion from that, and quite a nice diversion, because we're going to be talking about mindfulness and its relevance to us, particularly in the world of education. Now, mindfulness is defined by headspace.com as being in the moment. And as an idea, it's become more and more prevalent in schools around the country and in institutions around the world in the last few years. So it's definitely something we need to be talking about and discussing. So joining me on the podcast, I've got Olivia and Zoe, who are both in charge of mindfulness in education, in the context of education. Hi, Zoe.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Olivia.
Hi, Jacob. Hello.
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks so much for joining me this afternoon.
No worries. Thank you for having us.
Brilliant. Zoe, shall we start off with you then? What is mindfulness and what does it mean to be mindful?
Yeah, so it's a really tough question, I always find, to answer this, because it's almost like asking someone, what does chocolate taste like, I feel. And unless you experience it, I actually feel like it's quite difficult to understand. You mentioned the definition on Headspace, and I just want to elaborate on that a little bit, because there's an amazing guy called John Kabat-Zinn who wrote a mindfulness-based stress reduction course, and is a wonderful man in the mindfulness world, very inspirational and understands it a lot, and has done a lot of research into it. He actually describes it as paying attention on purpose in the present moment with curiosity and compassion to those things as they are. So basically, I suppose what that means, for me at least, is not wanting to change your experience in any way. So there'll be ups and downs in life, of course there will be. And there's another fantastic quote, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. And I just think that sums up life, right? We will have, really tough experiences in our life, and we'll have amazing experiences as well. And I suppose it's taking those things as they are, not wanting to change them. So when you're going through really tough times, and going through a lot of difficulty, I suppose it's paying attention to what's going on and not wanting it to be over, because actually it'll run its course, won't it? And as we know, those times will pass. So yeah, that's
absolutely. So in the busy world in which we live, it's so easy to be distracted, isn't it? It's so easy not to be in the present, to have our mind elsewhere. Olivia, would you like to add to that, or to say anything in addition to what Zoe just said?
Well, Zoe's explained it very well, and I think one of the key words there from John Kabat-Zinn's quote is awareness. I think mindfulness as a word is very overused at the moment, and it can put people off, and they think it's a bit of a hippie sort of opt-out of life. And actually it's the opposite. Being aware is the opposite of sort of being relaxed and zoned out. I think of mindfulness as being your own best friend, as accompanying yourself through life. So being aware of the ups and downs, accepting them. It doesn't mean being trodden on or being weak. I think it's the opposite. It's thinking that we're strong enough to accept whatever comes along, and strong enough to actually experience it. Think of all the sort of emotions that we do experience. Like, everyone experiences anger or anxiety or stress or grief or worry or fear. We all experience that, and enabling ourselves to recognize that and accept that and work with it. Like Zoe said, surf on those waves rather than trying to somehow flatten them down. That's what I see mindfulness as.
Brilliant.
Just to add very quickly to that, sorry, one of the misconceptions, I think, and Olivia touched on it there, is that mindfulness, when we practice, is all about trying to clear the mind. And when we're not trying to get rid of these thoughts, what we're actually trying to do is notice them and then come back to this present moment. So rather than, when we practice mindfulness, which I think actually maybe we could do in a moment together, it might be quite nice if one of us led.
Right, let's do it.
Yeah, in a moment maybe we could lead that. But rather than, going off with these thoughts of what's just happened, or going to thoughts of, oh my goodness, I must remember to do that. It's actually, coming back to this present moment, and coming back to, at most of the times, we're coming back to an anchor, which is our breath. We can use that as an anchor. We can use many different things. Yeah.
So how far then is mindfulness something that we do, or something that we are? Can you go around, for example, the whole day being full of mindfulness, being mindful, or is it something you take an hour out of the day to do, say when you wake up or before you go to bed?
I think that's a really key question, and I was talking to a colleague about that earlier today. I think some people are naturally very mindful in the way they live their lives, and they would never think that they are doing mindfulness. It's just the way they are. I think lots of the rest of us need something to help us be more mindful, but I think you can naturally live that way without having heard of the word.
And also on that, there's when we can sit and formally practice, and then, as Olivia just mentioned, we can informally practice and go about our normal day being mindful. But I suppose it's coming back to when we formally practice, when we either sit on a cushion or on a chair, or do a body scan on the floor, or actually be mindful. We do a lot of mindful movement and yoga and things like that, and that's those are times where you purposefully practice mindfulness, so that in our day-to-day lives, when we informally just go about our day, that we can be more mindful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. I think people might be put off this idea of doing a session on mindfulness, perhaps because they're not comfortable with say doing something which might resemble a religious practice, for example. So, I mean, is there any, in your experience, is there any way that mindfulness is connected with religion? Because it does have perhaps some similarities to it on the surface, or that might appear to be that way. Zoe, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I was talking to a parent. They came along to a conference which I ran a mindfulness session at school, and I was talking to a parent who is a vicar, and he said, oh, it's so similar to what we, when we pray, or it's a lot of values in Buddhism, for example. And I suppose, yes, there's this image of someone sitting and meditating with their legs crossed in this lotus position, and which does, I don't know, somehow have, when we see an image like that of a monk doing it or something, there are these religious things. But in religion, I think there are so many aspects of mindfulness. In mindfulness, we sometimes do things like gratitude practice, and there are a lot of things in religion, in lots of different religions, where we think about others, not just about ourselves.
It's an interesting question. I'm going to carry on along those lines. I think, being a history teacher, I'm going to try and link this into perhaps the world in which we live in some way. But do you think that mindfulness has gained in popularity because in the Western world, at least, we're perhaps losing part of the religious nature that was once embedded in our culture? Olivia, what do you think about that? Do you think mindfulness, in a way, is a substitute for practicing religion, or is connected to religion in that sense?
I think as humans, we all want some kind of order, that we work better within an ordered framework, and that whether that's from society. In the past, obviously, that would have been much more from religious behaviour, religious, I've forgotten the word, traditions. So I think people are often looking for something to help guide their life, and that might account for it. But I think it's more to do with the busyness of modern life than perhaps a lack of religion, because mindfulness is very much, as Zoe said, not about not judging. So it isn't a set of rules. So in a way, that's very different from religion, which generally have their moral precepts or their rules or commandments or whatever.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Well, let's talk about what you both do then, which is to facilitate and encourage students to be mindful, young people to go stronger in their mindfulness. Why do you think this is so important in this context of education? Why do you think this is so important in school? Zoe, would you like to start with that one?
So, I think stress has become these days, this kind of, as Olivia alluded to there as well, this kind of hot topic that we're all, you know, we all go through a lot of stress in our lives, and particularly students at school, you know, especially going through GCSEs and A levels with tons of exams that students are having to do. And the thing about stress is that stress is really important because it gets things done. But when we experience stress over a long period of time, what happens is we keep shifting from our amygdala, which is when the amygdala part of the brain is activated. We cannot access the prefrontal cortex at the front of the brain, which is where we think and we make clear decisions from and things like that. So yeah, I suppose mindfulness in a way, and this is definitely the students really, I find, really enjoy when you talk about the science behind this, because they can see that it has some benefit and they're like, oh, that's how it works. So when we practice mindfulness, we're able to shift from that amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, and what that allows us to do is think more clearly, you know, of course, reduce stress, and things like that. And I mean, mindfulness there's research behind it that helps, you know, lowers anxiety, it helps us to sleep better and things like that. And these are all things that in school for students, I think, are really important, to be able to sit down at a desk and perform in a heightened, stressful environment such as an exam, which I remember at school. I didn't even know what mindfulness was when I was at school, and I would have hugely benefited from it, I think, because I hated exams and I didn't perform well when it came to the final exam. And you know, I'm a drama teacher, so I can see the benefits for actors as well, jumping on stage and being in that heightened stressful experience of being in front of this large audience. So yeah, I can see, yeah, students really like it when you kind of link it to the science behind the brain and how, you know, using mindfulness to be able to shift back into the prefrontal cortex, I think is really interesting, and yeah, just really beneficial for students who are going through stressful times.
Fantastic. So what types of things do you do with students, and do you encourage students to do? Olivia, what could students do at school to practice mindfulness?
I think the first thing is just being prepared to give it a go. I mean, all students are so worried about peer pressure and being seen to be silly. You know, will they be laughed at? So having it as an accepted practice as something that is good for you, I think, is the first big step. Just making a bit of time in their day that is, they are overloaded all the time, brain overload from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed. And I think just getting in touch with their 5 senses, so giving them a challenge each day to taste something, to actually smell something, because they go through life on autopilot and they don't notice any of this. They're doing a lot of thinking, but they're not really doing any sensing or any real living. And so enabling them to, by giving them a challenge to do these kind of things, very short breathing practices that we teach them, so that if they're in a stressful situation, within 30 seconds, they can have done a breathing practice. No one around them will know, no one will see, and it just would have calmed them down. So we're just trying to give them the tools to respond, to make their life better, and also to respond to the difficult bits. So we don't tell them what to do. We'll give them as many tools as we can, and they might pick 1 or 2 that work, but it's very personal, I think, what works for you. So it's just giving them the ideas and the starting post, really.
You're giving them the tools by which they can choose from, I suppose, the selection of things that they can choose from. So the coronavirus has obviously changed things a lot in education, and you know, I needn't point those out here in that we're working from home and students are learning from home a lot of the time, sitting in front of a screen. How do you combat that with mindfulness? Because if you're in front of a screen all day, it's perhaps more difficult to appreciate the world around you. I mean, it's perhaps easier in the countryside than it is in the city, for example, depending on where you live. So in what ways have you been encouraging students to practice mindfulness during the last few weeks during the lockdown?
I'll come in and that.
You come on in, that's what I'm sure.
No, it's fine. So when we're at school, just to maybe allude to some of the things that we do at school. So we have a group called Mindful Moments that meet on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday in the library at school. and we meet, and I guide a meditation, and it's just only 10 minutes. So it's not, I think sometimes when we think of mindfulness formally, we think about us sitting down for an hour and meditating for an hour, but no, this is a short 10-minute reset, really. So we're blessed with mindful moments when we're at school. Olivia and I also both teach the year 10, so the UF PSHE. We teach the .B Mindfulness in Schools project, which is designed as a 9-week course. We do have to fit it into about 4 or 5 weeks, so that each student does get a rotation in it every term. So we have them for a term, and then we get a new set of students the next term. But we're glad that's in the curriculum, which is a big step forwards. I think it'll be interesting to open up maybe discussions of how to develop that in the future, because obviously Olivia and I see such, see a place for it in the curriculum. But yeah, so what we've done during lockdown is we've actually created, which I think is an amazing substitute, mindful moments on the system that we're using at school, which is Microsoft Teams. We created a team. The students and staff body emailed in if they wanted to join the team, and we've got a group of 65 students and staff on there now. And we've been able to run, Olivia and I have been running meditations Monday, Wednesday and Friday, break times, as we would do at school, which is, we feel really lucky that we've been able to, because it's a little community as well. It's not, the thought of not having that link and bond with the community that we've been able to form at school was, I'm glad we've been able to take that virtually. And it's a great little space where people share mindfulness and share ideas and share wonderful pictures of things that they've been doing at school, at home, even not at school, at home. And I share a thought of the day. So it might be a snippet of information, or a link to a TED Talk, or a link to a book or further reading, or just an idea that perhaps they might want to take into their day. So that's what we've been doing during lockdown. Which is good.
I bet they really appreciated that, the staff and the students involved. How easy have students found it to get involved with that? Have you found the response pretty enthusiastic? You've got a large number, which is fantastic. But in kind of practicing of it, have you had any feedback on how students are feeling coping during lockdown?
Yeah, what was interesting was when we first started, we did a lot of meditation sits. So for 10 minutes we would sit. And then Olivia did one about a month ago, and she did some wonderful mindful movement with us, which it was so welcome, because what was happening was where we at that point, we were getting to a point where we were sitting at our screens all day, which I know I'm not the only one who speaks. When I say that I was finding it really difficult, I know I'm not going to be alone in saying that, spending a lot of time on the screen when actually I'm not used to it. We're used to being in groups of people teaching lessons face to face. So yeah, I was finding that really difficult, but the mindful movement was really welcome, and that everyone was like, oh yeah, this is great. This is lots of energy, and it got energy flowing through our body. So there's not just the mindfulness sits that we can do. There's connecting breath to movement, which has, at a time like this when we're spending a lot of time sat down, has been really welcome. Yeah, Olivia, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
I think what you've done, what Zoe's done on Teams is brilliant, and the numbers that are joining in is so encouraging. I've only done the one thing, which is absolutely Zoe's big. No. I really hope that it can carry on when we're back in school. Obviously, it's nice to have the real mindful moments, but I think for some people, being able to access it on Teams is, maybe they're in an office and can't get out. Maybe there are people that just hasn't quite got the confidence to come to a new group, but doing it on a screen is a very good first step in. And the lovely positive thoughts that are shared each day is exactly what we need in life, because we're so focused on the negative, and particularly at the moment, everyone's worried and life's uncertain. To point out these good bits, look for the good and praise it, just sums it up.
Yeah, injection of positivity to each day then.
Yeah, it does feel like that, and it's a wonderful sharing platform actually. And I think Olivia's right. It would be lovely to bring that in, as a positive coming out of this. We're all stuck at home. I think it would be amazing to somehow, the community is huge at the moment. 65 in that group is bigger than we would normally have, and I think maybe that's because it's this confidence behind a screen that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were going along to a group for the first time, which is sometimes quite nerve-wracking.
Absolutely, that's an excellent point, really, isn't it? You're doing it in the comfort of your own home.
You can have video off, you can have audio off. You don't even need to communicate. But
great. And before we do some mindfulness live with you both, are there any final bits of advice or suggestions for further reading or watching, if students are interested in this, if young people are interested in this? What could they do to fire up for their knowledge and their desire to learn more about this?
I think what is worth remembering is that mindfulness is really learning about yourself. And if we're honest, we're all pretty interested in ourselves. What makes us tick? Finding what is uplifting in your day and managing to do more of that. Finding what drains you and managing to rule that out. So not judging yourself, not seeing it as something you might fail, but seeing it as a way to really learn about ourselves, connecting our bodies and our minds, reading our body signals. There is so much good to be gained from it. So really just have a go.
I love that. I think that sums it up for me as well. For everyone, I think mindfulness, what they find nurturing and what we find nurturing will be different to the next person. I might find that gardening might be quite nurturing for me, and that I choose to do more of that because it improves my mental health. But for someone else, it might be going for a really long walk and being on their own rather than, so I think it looks different for everyone. Just a few things I wanted to point out, just things that I've found really useful, helpful over the years. So this is an amazing book by my first mindfulness teacher, Ed Halliwell, who I did an MBSR course, so a mindfulness-based stress reduction course, which is a course that we have to do. So Olivia and I both done that. You do it before you go on to do your teacher training course. And it's called Into the Heart of Mindfulness, and it's all about Ed's journey into finding a way of well-being. So it was an incredibly insightful book, which I really enjoyed. So I'd give that a read. There's another book by Mark Williams and Danny Penman. Mark Williams is an incredible person within the mindfulness world, so definitely give that a read if you're interested. Mindfulness, a practical guide to finding peace in a frantic world, which this is, isn't it? Let's be honest.
I have to say I have that book too, although it's stuck in my classroom at the moment, and definitely recommend that. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And then this is just a bit of lighter reading, but Fern Cotton, I say lighter, but this is her books are wonderfully illustrated. She's obviously a fantastic artist as well, but she's got 3 books, Happy, Calm and Quiet. And they're wonderful things to read. And again, it goes through her journey into mindfulness and how she's found it helpful in her life. So yeah, those are just a few books that I wanted to share, but there's loads of stuff out there. There are obviously, as Jacob, you mentioned at the beginning, Headspace, the app. I really enjoy Calm, the app as well, which is an American app, but again is slightly different to Headspace. Yeah, just give it a go. I think, yeah, as Olivia said, don't be like, just give it a go.
Sessions today. Try it. Get involved. Well, let's give it a go then now, shall we? Who would like to lead on this?
Perfect.
I think Zoe is
go for it.
Drama teacher, all the skills.
Okay, so I'll lead. Okay, so if you want to find a wakeful position sat on your chair, so what that means is you're not leaning up against the back of the chair and you're not keeping your body too rigid. You want to find a space in between where you are sat nice and upright. I sometimes say that it's like a stack of £1 coins. Your spine is like a stack of £1 coins. Okay. And if it feels comfortable, just closing down the eyes once you've found your position. And just an invitation now to bring your awareness into your feet. And just feel what it feels like to have that connection between the soles of your feet and the earth beneath you. So being curious to the sensations that you can feel in your feet. Are they particularly warm at the moment? Are they cold? Can you feel a fizzing or a tingling? And then just an invitation to lead your awareness into your seat. So where your seat is in contact with the chair. So just noticing how you've distributed your weight from one side to the other, and not wanting to change your experience in any way to make it equal, or just noticing how it is. And then feeling a connection with your anchor. So feeling gravity in the lower half of your body, just anchoring down into the earth. And keeping that anchor in your awareness, just drifting your awareness up to your breath. And noticing the sensations of breathing. So being interested in what it actually feels like to breathe. We breathe thousands of times a day, but when do we actually bring awareness to this life force that keeps us going? And as we practice like this, and we bring awareness to our breath, we'll notice that there'll be thoughts that pop in about, am I doing this right? Is anyone watching? What am I going to have for dinner tonight? So as you notice those thoughts, without ripping your attention away from them, just noticing them, and slowly and gently congratulate yourself for noticing the thought, and then bringing your attention back to the breath. And then just allowing your awareness to just drift away and let the mind do what it wants to do just for a few seconds. Bringing yourself back into the space around you. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Well, Zoe, Olivia, what a fabulous way to end the day sitting at the computer. Thank you both so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, Jacob.
Thank you.